guys, welcome back to the Jenks Island podcast, the only NFL podcast where you get your takes from a washed-up Division III cornerback and his friends. I'm your host, Grayson Jenkins, joined by my good friend and co-host, Ty. And obviously, you see Disturb is not with us today. He's traveling to go see family this week, so he's having a good time with them. But Ty and I are going to be breaking down the Week 15 game slate. Obviously, Ty's team, the Broncos, has a huge game this week against the Packers. It's not the end-all, be-all. If they end up losing for either of those teams, they still are definitely in the playoff race, but more than anything, it's for that number one seed in each of their respective conferences. But before we get into the picks, let's get into our weekly leaders. Obviously, the top, Ty is still tied for first at 140 with Chad. Then at third, we got the Phoenix Fluffer and Ryan at 139. Fifth, we got He Hate Me Now at 138. And then I'm down at 9. Only 4 back now from Ty. Gained a game this past week. I'm at 136. And then Hammers at 133. And then Sturb, massive mistake. Said he might have had a few too many drinks when he was picking his games and missed a few of those picks in there and tanked his score, which you got to feel bad for the guy. At the same time, though, it's going to be a tough climb to get up to the top the rest of the season. But anyways, getting into these picks, starting off, you got the Falcons taking on the Buccaneers. The Falcons obviously struggling to kind of find their footing as a team right now in a tough spot, eliminated from the playoffs this past week. And they have their first round pick traded to the Rams. So the Rams are in a sitting pretty right now, Super Bowl contender, having a top 10 pick likely to end the season. Like that's exactly where the Rams want to be, not where the Falcons want to be at all. The Seahawks, you know that Seahawks made it close at the beginning of the game, and then they just blew them out of the water to end it. The Bucs on the other side, coming off of a loss to the Saints. Tyler Shough obviously had 2 rushing touchdowns, huge for the Saints fans out there, including myself. We're a little excited about that right now, but obviously the season is over for the Saints. But the Bucs still fighting for that division. I think the Bucs are going to go all out this week. I believe I saw that Mike Evans is going to be activated and active in this game. So give me the Bucs in this one. I just don't think without Michael Penix, the Falcons are going to be able to do this. Obviously, Drake London might be back. He is questionable. If Drake London comes in, maybe that gives them an extra boost. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a better team in my eyes at this point in time. So I'm going to go with the Bucs here. Ty, who do you got?
Yeah, Jalen McMillan's going to be back too, so they get a whole arsenal of receivers. I'm going to take the Bucs here too.
Yeah, and Chris Godwin looked pretty good last week as well in moments. So if he's able to play well too, that gives you even more of a boost at the receiver room. Moving on, we got the Browns taking on the Bears. Ty, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Bears tough one last week, right? Obviously had the 1 seed and duked it out with Green Bay until the end of the game when Caleb, kind of just chucked it up and threw an interception on 4th down. But and Cleveland on the other side, Shadur, had a really good game. Obviously not a very formidable opponent on the other side, but nonetheless, got to give him his flowers. He had a 400-yard game. It was a good game for him. But the concerning thing for me in that game was Cleveland's run defense. Tony Pollard kind of broke off 2 really big runs against them. And they're going against an opponent that loves to run the football, right? Almost to a fault. They gave Monungai and Swift a ton of carries. They kind of just thought, okay, we can, do what we've been doing against the Green Bay defensive front. That's one of the better fronts in the NFL, one of the better against the run in the NFL. But, I thought coming to this game that they would struggle to run the football again because Cleveland's defense is good. And I thought it would be, maybe a closer game because they'd force Caleb into a turnover. But, seeing that kind of swayed me a little bit more towards, I was going to take Chicago anyways, but, Chicago winning this by a larger margin because I think their defense is going to be able to contain the Browns offense. They're obviously a lot better defense than the Tennessee Titans. They pretty much just have Jeffrey Simmons and a bunch of scrubs. No offense to anyone on the Titans, but that's, they're one of the worst teams in the NFL right now. And, I think Chicago, they'll be able to figure it out. They'll run the football. I do think Ben Johnson will adjust a little bit too. He's too smart of a guy to continue to just, do the same things against quality defenses that, it just weren't working against Green Bay. And I think, the offense will get more comfortable with Luther Burden being the wide receiver 2 / maybe wide receiver 1 with Rome Odunze down. So give me the Bears here. I just don't think that Shadur is going to be able to have, the same type of a game that he did against a more formidable defense.
Yeah, give me the Bears here as well. And like you said, Ty, like Shadur played really well, and they still somehow lost that game, which was just against the Titans, that's a really bad look for this team where they're at. The Bears defense is extremely opportunistic, so I see Shedeur throwing maybe a pick or two in this one as well. So I think the Bears come out in Chicago and win. Moving on, we got the Ravens taking on the Bengals. The Ravens, obviously, Ty and I were talking about this before the episode, and I'm going to ask Ty about this catch that was ruled incomplete in the end zone. Isaiah Likely, catch got overturned, and they ended up losing to the Steelers. All three of us picked the Ravens last week, which is tough for the pod. But the Ravens are in a state of disarray on offense when Lamar Jackson's kind of slowed down by injury. I mean, last week we did see a little bit more of a spark in terms of the offensive side of the ball. Their defense, though, is absolutely struggling. They let Aaron Rodgers run for a touchdown at his ripe age of like 42, whatever he is now, and he outran the edge to get there, which is just it's just not a good look for the Ravens defense. The Bengals on the other side are a really good offense right now. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are going to be producing, and obviously Chase Brown had a solid game receiving last week. Not so much on the run, which surprised me, but T. Higgins is going to be out for the Bengals offense most likely. I just don't see the way that he makes it out of the concussion protocol with the scenario where he was definitely concussed twice, possibly in the same game, and then he still played. So that whole situation is crazy. But Ty, before I give my pick, real quick, I just want to ask you, what are your thoughts on that Isaiah Likely touchdown that got overturned to not be a touchdown?
Yeah, when the pool report came out, Buttersworth, whatever his name is, he came out and said that he needed to take a third step, and that's super confusing to me, right? Because if I toe tap on the sideline, all I need to get is 2 feet down. I'm in the end zone, so there's no making a football move of like turning up field, right? And his football move was to hold the football out. He took the 2 steps. I mean, I think at the end of the day, that's got to be a touchdown. I think the Ravens kind of did get screwed there, and I think that the NFL was just covering for pretty much a bad call. I mean, to say a third step, right? I think if you heard anyone in the media talk about that this week, they were like, "What does that even mean, right? Do I need three steps to catch a ball in the field of play on the sideline? Right? No, you don't. Like, in the field of play, sure, you need to make a football move, but that's realistic, right? You're turning up field, or that third step is realistic, to be a thing, but." In the end zone, it's got to be 2 feet and clear possession. He had that. The ball got knocked out after that. I think it's gotta be a catch, and I think the NFL was just covering.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there in the terms of it's in the end zone. So once you cross the end zone, once you cross the goal line, it's a touchdown no matter what. Like if you're a running back and the ball crosses the goal line and then you start fumbling the ball, it's still a touchdown, right? Like it doesn't matter that you're losing control right as you cross it or things like that. As long as it gets across in possession, like it's a touchdown. He caught the ball and it wasn't like he was bringing it back into his hands, like he wasn't bringing it back into his body and he fumbled it or something. Like he was holding it with very firm possession of the ball before the DB knocked it out. So it is a tough look. In the end, I think the Ravens, might have ended up losing that game either way. It's kind of tough to say just how that game plays out the rest of the way. But I do think that it's kind of a messed up call in that moment. Um, that being said, I'm going to pick the Bengals to win this one. I think their offense is playing really, really well, and the Ravens' defense is struggling. And as long as the Bengals can somewhat slow down the Ravens' offense, which I feel like they can probably do right now, the Bengals should be able to win. Ty, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Bengals too. Chance to get back Shamar Stewart, obviously Trey Hendrickson done for the year, but that would be a huge, huge gift for them. And the Ravens, I mean, Keaton Mitchell was like one of their guys that gave them a spark, and he went down with injury. So
Yep.
it's just not a great look for the Ravens right now. And the Bengals, outside of Joe Burrow throwing those 2 interceptions, they were about to beat the Bills. So give me the Bengals.
Yeah, and those picks, right? Like it wasn't even really like they were good plays by the Bills, right? Like getting a tipped pass, interception, and then the other one, I think it was just Bernard just making a really great play. So nothing to fault Joe Burrow on there. He was having a great game outside of that, so it is tough for them to lose that one. Moving on, Ty, we got the Cardinals taking on the Texans. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Houston is just on a tear right now, especially defensively, right? Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter are just, terrorizing opposing offenses. Got a big win last week against Kansas City. And the offense I think is impressive as well, right? CJ Stroud is just taking care of the football. Him and Nico Collins are really starting to click again. Woody Marks has kind of emerged as their lead back. Has looked good the past couple weeks, right? Maybe fantasy wise, if you've had him, you're like, oh, he's only had 7 points, 8 points. it's 70 rushing yards, 80 rushing yards, and he didn't have a touchdown, right? It's like Nick Chubb was coming in to take that touchdown from him. So, and Nick Chubb did go down in this last game. So Woody Marks, emerging, Nico, Stroud, and then the defense. I think it's just going to be too much for an Arizona team that, is just they're not ready to compete right now. Obviously, Jacoby Brissett and Michael Wilson are an insane duo.
For
Um,
whatever reason. For whatever
yeah,
reason.
and I don't think anyone would have ever thought that was coming, but, and it's only when Marvin Harrison's out, right? When Marvin Harrison's back in, Michael Wilson goes back to being wide receiver 2 that gets, like, 5 targets. So, they'll make it interesting maybe if Michael Wilson can have a crazy game, but Houston's defense is too good. Stingler will probably not lock him down, so give me Houston.
Yeah, Ty, I'm going to pick Houston as well, but like you just mentioned, Michael Wilson is on an absolute tear when Marvin Harrison Jr. is out, and it's like when he's the only receiver for this team, is seemingly like Megatron. Like he can't be guarded. He's making ridiculous catches. And I want to ask you, if he somehow goes out and has another 150 plus yard performance against this Texans defense, who has been shutting down offenses, is that more of a testament to him, or just do you think it's more of just like a Jeremy Linsanity kind of run?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a testament to him. I think in football, right, like if you go out there and dominate week in and week out, I think, you obviously are a talented football player. And I
Mhm.
think, with Marv in the picture, they obviously have to give him targets. They drafted him so
Yeah,
high. And, it does change the offense when a guy is coming in and out, and he's supposed to be your wide receiver 1. And I think, Brissett and Wilson probably just have a good connection because they were probably working together on the twos throughout practice and training camp before Kyler Murray went down. So I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. I'd like to see if Michael Wilson could get some more, chances when Marv is healthy or get some chances somewhere else. Because he's obviously looked fantastic in some of these games, like you mentioned.
yeah, yeah, and he has like one more year left on his contract, so maybe he goes out next year and balls out again and just earns himself a lot of money. So we'll see how
He'd be
that
like an Alec
plays out.
Pierce, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and Alec Pierce would be. I mean, that's huge for him money wise. Like you're just making a lot more money as receiver. And if you can be a really solid receiver too, like a lot of teams are gonna be looking for that. So good for Michael Wilson. But yeah, the Texans should be able to win this one. Moving on, we got the Jets taking on the Jaguars. I won't say too much about this one because the Jets will likely be without their top 2 quarterbacks, and the Jaguars' defense has been playing really well. The offense is playing well as in addition. I mean, you see BTJ kind of getting back into his old self, had a few chunk plays for that Jaguars offense. Like you said, Ty, last week, I believe Jacoby Myers was your fantasy sleeper of the week. He had another solid week. This team is just firing on all cylinders. So give me the Jaguars to beat the Jets here. The Jets are a struggling team right now, and they're missing a few key offensive pieces. So give me the Jags. Ty, who do you got?
Yeah, give me the Jags too. Brenton Strange, another guy that's been really big for this offense and has
Yep.
kind of come back from injury in a really strong way in the second half of the season. So give me Jacksonville.
Moving on, Ty, 2 of your divisional opponents, the Chargers, facing the Chiefs. The Chiefs dynasty might finally be over, and my prophecy may be coming true. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Kansas City, as we mentioned before, tough loss against Houston last week. They just don't look the same. Offensively, the offensive line is not great. And I know some pundits have been talking about how that's affecting Mahomes, but I think even when Mahomes has had times, he's missing his spot on deep balls. The receivers haven't developed like Xavier Worthy, right? Rashi Rice. If you can take him out, it's pretty much clips for this offense, right? Because they can't run the football that well, or they don't do it consistently enough, right? Where it's explosive plays. It's, they run it for 3-4 yards, but there's no
Yeah.
explosives. And, they can't connect with Xavier on the explosives. And Kelsey's getting older. And, defensively, they're not that great either. I think Chris Jones has kind of hit a peak where he's starting to go downhill. And, he just isn't producing the same way. And he was kind of carrying that defense. When you have an interior threat like that, right? It makes everyone's job a lot easier. I won't say he was carrying the defense, but he was making, a young defense a lot easier for them. And on
Yeah.
the flip side, right, the Chargers go out and that game was hideous, right? That game, I didn't watch most of it. I
Same.
did box score watch, but I mean, I thank God I didn't watch it because there were 6 turnovers in that game. I think 2 of them were on the same play by Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, he
Obviously
had
the
he had
Chargers.
five total. So
Yeah, 2 on the same play. Chargers
yeah,
defense, right, has looked great. They're kind of turning around. They kind of have done that since they got Alohi Gilman, Odofe Owe, low key signings, but has kind of changed things defensively for them. And Jesse Minter is a good DC too. He's obviously going to change things up. But Defensively they look good. Offensively, I think it's Herbert's coming back from, getting surgery, right? Like he's
It's
not
a
going to be
tough injury,
perfect
yeah.
by any means. His offensive line's terrible, and Pipkins got hurt in that game too. So, but it was nice to see Hampton start to get going, and I think the Chargers they'll continue to get better as Herbert gets healthier, Hampton gets healthier. I think they're going to beat KC in this one. They beat them earlier in the season in Brazil. I think this time around, they're just a better football team and they have more of the momentum right now. And I just don't see a way that, the Chiefs are going to be able to do much against this Chargers defense.
Yeah, no, I don't mind that take at all, and I think the analysis is really good. The only reason I am picking the Chiefs in this one, the only real reason is the home field advantage. I see them maybe winning like a field goal or like a 2-point game. Like it's going to be a close one, I believe, with both teams' defenses kind of leading the way in this one because the Chargers O line, like you said, is pretty banged up, and we saw the Chiefs defense get pressure on C.J. Stroud, who has a pretty bad O line in a comparison range with the Chargers O line at this point in time. And so I think this one's gonna be a close game, pretty low scoring. I'm not sure what the over under line's at, but if it's at like 44, I'd probably go with the under in this one. So give me the Chiefs in a very close game. But like you said, if the Chiefs lose this one, right? Like it's very possible they finish with a losing record this season because they still have another game against the Broncos. And Sean Payton is a guy, if he can beat up on a divisional opponent, he's gonna you bet sure as hell he's gonna do it. So it's interesting.
I think they would be eliminated too, right? I think they need to win out.
They might, yeah, probably because this would be their eighth loss, and in the AFC right now, I just don't see that getting them in.
Well, especially because
I
the
can
Chargers
check.
beat them twice, right? So the Chargers would be
Yeah,
10
they
and
would have the
4.
advantage in division.
Jacksonville likely wins at 10 and 4. I think.
Yeah, the
I'm pretty
current.
sure.
Let me find the current playoffs picture because off the top of my head, I don't know the AFC picture. So the 7 seed has 5 losses, which is the Texans at this point in time.
And they
So
hold the
yeah,
tiebreaker.
if they lose this one, they'd have to
That would be it.
do maybe
Because
maybe they're
Houston has
not
the
like.
tiebreaker.
Oh yeah, because they won. Yeah, maybe there's like that 0.001% chance somehow where it's like technically they're not, but they would need like 5
Houston
teams to
Hu
lose
if
out.
Houston win I think if Houston wins and they lose, they would be
Then they're done.
statistically eliminated, because if Houston loses out, they're a 9-loss team. If Casey wins out, you know,
Mhm.
so yeah, but they're close, right? They're close to being eliminated, which is
Definitely, yeah,
absurd.
it's I just don't see the Chiefs making the playoffs at this point. Like I don't see it happening. They're
They still have to play
pretty
us again.
exactly, like they're pretty banged up. Not necessarily the most banged up team in the league, but they're pretty banged up on the offensive side of the line. And Travis Kelsey's not really giving them too much. The receivers, like you said, kind of
And the line was
aren't
already
playing well.
bad anyways
Yeah. So
with
not
the
where you want
guys
to
that
be, but the dynasty is seemingly over. And I think Ty and I both called that to start this season that they weren't gonna be the best team this year. So we got a lot of hate for that, but our victory laps will be huge to end this season. Anyways, moving on, we got the Bills taking on the Patriots, a huge game for the divisional race as well as the playoff race. The Patriots have a relatively easy schedule still to end this season, so they should be able to win the division even if they do lose. But it's huge for the Bills in the current wild card race to get a better seed than the 7 or 6 seed. Maybe they work their way up to the 5. But the Bills trying to somehow catch up to the Patriots in the divisional race. The Bills just came out of a huge win against the Bengals where they were down by 10 points, and then they just completely flipped the script with 2 picks in 3 minutes and Josh Allen having like a 50-yard touchdown run. The Patriots on their side, 10-game win streak, but not a lot of great competition. And that's the huge talking point right now for them is this is probably the toughest game they've had in a long time since their past game against the Bills, which was like 10, 11 weeks ago. So the Bills, I'm going to pick the Bills here against the Patriots in an away game because I think the Patriots, right, they're on a win streak. They haven't played a lot of good opponents. Maybe they're a little bit complacent. Obviously, they probably won't be because Mike Vrabel's your head coach. He's going to have them still pushing for more. But I believe the Bills pulled this one out because Josh Allen is at that point in the season where he finally realized he's good again and he's actually going to play to his level of ability. We see Josh Allen, right, like have highs and lows throughout a season. And this year he had a little bit of a low, and now he's sort of kind of climbing back up. And this past week he made a ridiculous throw to Khalil Shakir in the end zone, had that 50-yard run. He just realizes that he can take over games, and he needs to do that in this one to win. So I think Josh Allen carries the Bills to win in New England. Ty, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, last time this was obviously a close game, and I just think I'm going to go with Buffalo here too, because I think Buffalo right now is probably the hottest team in football, right? Just the way that they're playing, the way that Josh is playing. James Cook is the second leading rusher in the NFL right now. You would never know that because we talk about JT. He's climbed on JT. We talk about JT a ton, and
Yep.
obviously factors there outside of JT, obviously with the quarterback play. But with Josh Allen as your quarterback, and you're the second leading rusher in the NFL, super duper impressive. And Buffalo's pass defense has actually been pretty good as well. I think they're top 10 at least. I believe they're top 5 in passing yards allowed per game. So that's obviously the strength of this New England team with Drake Maye. I'm going to go with Buffalo. I just think they're the hot team right now. Even though
Yeah.
even though New England's won a ton of games, like you said, right, the competition's not as high, and Buffalo just feels like they're playing on a different level right now.
And it's not to say like we think the Patriots are a bad team. Like this is just it's a
Right.
divisional matchup that always makes it closer, and the Bills are hot. So I think it'll be a close. I'll leave my hot take for later, but we both got the Bills in this one for good reason. Moving on, we got the Commanders taking on the Giants with Jaden Daniels likely out. Ty, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, no, Jaden Daniels is obviously a huge sway in this because I was going with the Commanders before this. I just think that
Mhm.
Jaden obviously last week was not great, but that was his first game back, and I just know that has the ability to elevate this team to a different level. Without him, Mariota has played well at times, but they don't have a great run game. They kind of have had to rely on some spectacular plays by either Mariota or Traylon Burks had a crazy catch, right? Like, and defensively they're just not great, and they're going up against a New York Giants team that their record's not great, but Jackson Dart is a competitive guy. He's had them in a lot of games that they should not be. He puts say what you want about him, but he put his body on the line week in and week out, and he just wants to win football games. And that's something that is hard to beat. Like a guy that when you have a team that has a quarterback that's just so damn competitive and talented at the same time, and they have a really good defensive front. I'm gonna go with New York in this one just because I think the Commanders' front, the offensive line isn't bad, but Josh Connerly, I think, will probably be in hell if he has to go up against Brian Burns, who's obviously, I think he's second in sacks this season behind
He's been
Miles
balling,
Garrett.
yeah.
So I'm gonna go with the Giants. I just believe in Jackson Dart to lead this team to victory.
Yeah, give me the Giants here as well. Like you said, I think the Commanders' defense is just really slow and old at this point in time, and for that reason, like maybe if it was Russell Wilson still, you can beat the Giants because he's more of a statue in the pocket than he was in his past peak. But Jackson Dart is going to run a lot in this game. You got obviously Wan'Dale Robinson is still a solid receiver for them. He'll be making some guys miss against the slower defense. So I think this game could be close, right? Divisional game, just like the Patriots and Bills game. Like it will be closer than people expect, but I do think the Giants are able to pull it out, which kind of sucks for them in the terms of draft position in the future because they have the number one overall pick right now. Maybe they try to tank, but I just think the Giants are the better team. So I'll go with the Giants here as well. Moving on, we got the Raiders taking on the Eagles. I really do not have much to say for this Raiders team. They're very, 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 very bad right now. The Eagles on the other side also not playing great. Jalen Hurts is not playing like a top 10 quarterback like everyone was hyping him up to be to start the season. Um, he's not making good throws. He's made some good plays, right? Like in overtime, I think he made a couple good plays leading up to that final interception, and then obviously made a bad read. But the offense isn't great. Saquon Barkley kind of had that big explosive run that probably gave them a few extra points than if they probably would have stalled on later on that drive. I'll still take the Eagles here in this one because they are the better team, but I don't think anyone's really going to be watching this one over some of the other matchups on this week's slate. Ty, who do you got?
Yeah, give me the Eagles. Raiders got to start Kenny Pickett this week with Geno probably down. So I mean, just there's no way that the Eagles
And
lose
it's
this
not
game.
like it's not even like that is like the biggest drop off either. It's like it's not good for them, but it's just like either way that
I
this
mean, Kenny
Raiders
could be
offense
better,
is
but
pretty
even
struggling.
this team is just garbage.
Yeah, it's not a good team right now, and their offensive line is bad as well. So give me the Eagles as well. Moving on, we got the Packers tie taking on your Broncos. Huge matchup here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously on both sides, like you said, big game. If you win this, you propel yourself to have a better chance to lock in that one seed, win your division, especially for Green Bay, right? For us, it's a little bit more cushion, but Green Bay only a one game cushion on Chicago now, so this would give them, a better chance at continuing to try to win that division. But two really good defenses, right? Top 10 defenses in, most metrics. And Green Bay's really turned it on in the second half of the season, especially with their pass rush. I really think this game's going to come down to who makes less mistakes between Bo Nix and Jordan Love, right? Bo, early on in the season, making a lot of mistakes, wasn't playing great, kind of on a roll lately. Some mistakes here and there, especially against Washington, that stupid interception that he threw. But overall, he's been playing a lot better football. Jordan Love, he is playing at a high level as well, but sometimes he plays down to his competition, and you just don't know what you're going to get with him, right? Jenks calls him Jekyll and Hyde, and sometimes he is in some of those big moments. It's not there's not like a statistic that you can point to with it. It's just sometimes when you see him out there and you're like, what the hell is he doing?
Yeah.
So I really think it's going to come down to that. At the end of the day, I think Denver's gonna be able to pull this one off. I think that their defense, especially their secondary, is just the secondary is gonna force Jordan Love into some more turnovers, right? If you get the pressure up front and the back end, they're ball hawks back there with Hufanga and Jones, Surtain, and all the other corners that we have. I think on the other side, Green Bay secondary is not bad, and their front is obviously very good, but, Denver has probably a top 3 offensive line in the NFL. Green Bay does have a good offensive line, but I think it just comes down to the Denver defense is a little bit better, a little bit more opportunistic. Obviously
Mhm.
they're on a pace for the sack record as well. So give me the Broncos and just expecting Jordan Love to probably make, one mistake that turns this game the other way in a one-score game.
Yeah, give me the Broncos here as well. Obviously, Jordan Love during Toyotathon has been balling out at a historic rate. It's actually pretty impressive. But like you just said, Ty, I think this Broncos defense will be able to make him make mistakes in this one. The Broncos offense, like you said as well, hasn't been like the most explosive offense in the league, but they've gotten the job done time and time again. So give me the Broncos to win here. If this was flipped stadium wise, like maybe if the Packers are home, maybe I can lean the Packers a little bit with that home field advantage. But
Right.
being in Denver, like it's a little bit of a boost. So
Denver hasn't lost a home game. Like they're
yeah,
undefeated at home. And actually they're the underdogs in this. So Sean Payton's gonna have them with the chip on their back, right? You're the underdogs
exactly.
at home and you're undefeated and yada yada yada. And we beat them 2 years ago in 2023 with Russell Wilson. So that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, so we're both taking the Broncos here. So let's ride. Anyways, moving on, we got the Lions taking on the Rams. Ty, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, we get the Matt Stafford, Jared Goff rematch again, and we've gotten this in the playoffs, and it's always been a great matchup between the two. Detroit right now, I thought they were going to struggle a bit last week, right? I thought Dallas is going to come out and win. Their secondary is banged up. Defensively, obviously, they let up 33 points, or 30 points, but they did score 44. The
Yep.
Rams on the other side, you know, I just don't see a way that this team doesn't end up as a 1 seed in the NFC, doesn't end up winning the NFC West, and doesn't end up winning this football game. I just think, you know, they've had blips in the secondary at times. Their front is really good, but their offense is just so good and so opportunistic. And Matt Stafford and Puka, they just make plays, right? And I said this with Dallas last week. I know that they were going to take advantage of the secondary, but I don't believe in Detroit's banged up defense to do that 2 weeks in a row where they can hold the team to less points than they can score. I also don't think that the Lions are gonna score 44 points against the Rams team. Obviously, this Rams defense is a lot better than Dallas's defense. Dallas's defense has gotten better since the trade deadline, of course, and we've all been impressed with how they've turned it around. But the Rams, it's just, their defensive front is so good. The Lions'
Mhm.
offensive line banged up at times. They tried to bring Frank Ragnow back. That's obviously hurt them. And they have some stuffers in the middle with Fisk, and then on the edge with Jaden Verse. So I'm gonna go with the Rams here. I think it'll probably be a close game. I don't think that either of these teams will run away with it. But give me the Rams probably by like 7.
Yeah, I'm glad you took the Rams. It allows me to kind of try to make a swing at the comeback, but I'll take the Lions here in a very high scoring game. I think this one will be a shootout closer, similar to that Cowboys game last week. Like you said, the Rams defense is better than the Cowboys defense, but their secondary at times has struggled. Obviously, the Panthers were able to beat them. The weather in that one wasn't great. I believe it was like a rainy game, and it doesn't rain really in LA. They don't have to worry about that. So maybe they're not practicing for the rain, things like
Oh, they
that.
have a
So
dome too.
Yeah, yeah, so it's kinda like no matter what, they're not really worried about the rain, so it's very plausible that they don't practice for that, and they weren't really prepared, but I think this game is going to be a really high-scoring game. I don't think it would be telling of, like, the Lions are a better team than the Rams. I think it would just be a close one, high-scoring game where the Lions pull one out, um, and it would just
Lions
be
do
like
need this.
yeah, this would be huge for their playoff hopes, and like I was about to say is we could see this rematch again in the playoffs. And if we did, maybe I pick the Rams to get the revenge. Whoever wins this one, I think if there's a rematch in the playoffs, will lose in the playoffs. I think it would be like a flip kind of situation. So give me the Lions here. And I will say this: I know people are going to be thinking like, oh, what about the home field advantage that we were talking about? Like, there is no home field advantage in SoFi. It's just not a thing, especially in Rams Chargers games. Like you just see opponents' fan bases just take over. So give me the Lions here in this one. Moving on, we got the Panthers taking on the New Orleans Saints, being led by the one and only Tyler Shough, who is seemingly the face of the franchise for the Saints for the future. He's taken over the Saints fan base. Like obviously there was the whole, oh, Spencer Rattler's actually better than him. There was this whole discourse across the Saints fan base on Twitter for weeks. It's like there's still some Spencer Rattler stands that are just like, no, Spencer Rattler's better than him. He's just doing well because literally there's no good excuse, but like the Spencer Rattler guys are trying to fight for it. The Panthers on the other side, solid team, right? But every single week you have no clue what to expect from this Panthers team. It is an absolute just wild card. It's a wild card. They'll beat the Packers. They'll beat the Rams, and then they'll lose to the Saints. And that happened earlier in this season. Now the Saints are home, and I think that the Saints should have a good fan presence at this home game because they're coming off a win, and Tyler Shuck's getting some momentum and hope to the franchise. And let me just say this: Bryce Young in his games against the Saints has never thrown for more than one touchdown, and he has four picks, two touchdowns total in 5 games played against them. He's struggled against the Saints for whatever reason, and I think that continues in this one. So give me the Saints at home to beat the Panthers. Ty, who do you got?
Yeah, give me the Panthers. The Panthers have something to play for. The Saints don't right now. It just means
Definitely.
more to them. Rico Dowdle, I think that he'll have a pretty good game. And Tet has just kind of emerged as this weapon in the second half of the season. That's just so hard to stop. I think he's like top
Yep.
5 in touchdowns and since like week 6 or something like that is the statistic. And it's he's behind some dogs like JSN, Devontae
Mhm.
Adams. It's pretty crazy. So I think Christian Watson's actually up there as well. Um, but I think that helps Bryce Young out a ton and has, and we've seen Bryce Young play at a higher level because he finally has a number one guy, right? He realistically has not had a number one guy, right? Like, has played
Yeah.
fine at times. Coker is a guy that plays pretty well for them as like a 2 or 3. I just think that, the weapons around Bryce are starting to develop, and he's starting to play better with them. So give me the Panthers here.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up T-Mac. I'm gonna have to root for T-Mac. Obviously, I don't care really if the Saints win or lose. It'd be nice to see them win, but if T-Mac goes off and we lose, it's not the end of the world because I have him in fantasy in the playoffs, and it helps the Saints draft position. So like either way, I'm happy with this game. But like you said, I think T Mac's been really solid for them. I just want to see him get more targets, right? Like it's weird. They'll have some games, right? Like the game against the Falcons, he was going off targets. I think he had like 12 or something, and then the last 2 games he dropped off to like less than 5. So I just want to see him be more consistent with his usage and see how that continues or that connection between him and Bryce. Moving on, we got the Colts and Philip Rivers potentially taking on the Seahawks, and the Seahawks team obviously just blew the brakes off the Foul Clowns this past week after a close start in the first half. Second half, they went off. Sam Darnold found it a little bit. Rashid Shaheed started off with a kick return. Rashid Shaheed in the receiving game wasn't really being used the past few weeks. This past week, they started getting him more involved in the offense. It helped them a little bit. Obviously, JSN still balls out. The Colts on the other side are going to struggle. I don't see a way where Philip Rivers or Riley Leonard, whoever plays for this team, is going to succeed against the Seahawks defense. JT, like you said, Ty, James Cook passed him. JT's really kind of slowly regressed the past few weeks, not necessarily due to him, but because the passing game hasn't really been there and the teams are able to just kind of stuff the box and slow him down. I think the Seahawks will be able to succeed on defense against this team. So give me the Seahawks here. What are your thoughts, though? Philip Rivers, obviously 44 years old. I have two questions. Two questions. Philip Rivers coming back would reset his Hall of Fame clock. Do you think that's worth it? And then, do you think there's a scenario where Philip Rivers can lead this Colts team to the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, for the love of the game, yeah, it's always worth it, right? Phil is he's a football guy through and through. He loves Shane
Mhm.
Steichen. He loves the organization. He didn't spend much time there, but he has a great relationship with them. And he actually was talking to Shane Steichen week in and week out. He runs the Colts offense at the high school that he coaches at, and he was just talking game plan with him every single week, which is absurd. So he knows the offense really well. So yeah, I think it is worth it. He'll still make the play. He'll still make the Hall of Fame, and if it's another 5 years, whatever, he'll be 50
Yeah.
at that point. And he'll still be around. Um, as far as can they make the playoffs? Yeah, I still think there's a chance, right? I don't even know if it will be Phil though. I liked
Mhm.
what I saw out of Riley last week at times.
He looks
I
solid.
would
Yeah.
like to see them work more of the design run game with him. That's what he really had a lot of success with at Notre Dame. He's an athletic guy. He's a tough physical guy. If you guys remember the first drive of the Ohio State game in the national championship, it was Riley Leonard, Riley Leonard, Riley Leonard, like QB draw, QB counter, QB power all day. Like he just ran. I think he had like 80 rushing yards on the drive and carried them down the field. That's the type of the player that he could be. And with JT, that kind of gives you that teams can't, teams might be able to stack the box, but they got to read, right? They have to read. Is it going to be Riley on a boot or is it going to be JT taking it the other way? So it does add a little bit of nuance to the offense. And you know, w Riley came in with no prep. He got injured in that game. They were already down. They were kind of backwards in a lot of, 3rd and longs where Riley had to throw the ball and, he'd convert it and then they would get a penalty. It's just, I think the odds were kind of stacked against them. So I think that Riley can lead them to the playoffs. I think that Phil in this offense is a lot different, right? I think Philip,
Yep.
he's gonna be they're gonna throw the ball a lot. I still think that he has the ability to throw, and maybe he's their better option, right? Because they won't stack the box as much up against him, right? He'll be able to get the ball to his weapons. He's always been a guy that can pepper it around, and that opens it up more for JT. He's just got to he has to have success in the passing game, right? Like he
Mhm.
has to have like 250 yards a game because otherwise teams are just gonna be like, okay, he's not a threat at all to run the ball. So we're just gonna stack the box and make him throw the football against us, and JT's not gonna beat us. So it's two very different offenses with Riley and Phil. I think at the end of the day, it could just be Philip is Riley Leonard's mentor too, because the high school that Philip Rivers coaches at is the same high school that Riley Leonard went to. He mentored him in the pre-draft process, so they're very close. And it could just be that he needs a veteran leader that can be there, right? Because Daniel Jones is obviously down. Anthony Richardson's not a veteran, hasn't had success. So maybe
And
that's the type of
and Anthony Richardson's out with the orbital fracture too.
yeah, I mean, I would assume that he's around at least, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, Daniel Jones might not even be around. He might be in the press box or just not traveling or whatever. But yeah, so I think either way, they have a good enough record that they have a chance, right? You just got to win a couple football games. This football game, I don't think that they will win. I think Seattle's defense is too good, and it's week one of the Riley Leonard or Philip Rivers project, right? Give me another week, maybe, but Indianapolis's defense is banged up too, right? Travarius Ward has like his 3rd concussion of the year.
Yep.
Sauce is down right now. So they're typically a pretty good defense that could maybe be opportunistic in a game against Sam Darnold, who's starting to struggle turning over the ball a lot. But I just don't see that with a lot of the backup corners. We saw backup corners against Denver earlier in the year, and they struggled, against Cortland Sutton and stuff like that. So I think Seattle's going to be able to pull this one out pretty handedly, and then Indianapolis maybe gets their feet back underneath them next week.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think that's the right take. This is a tough game for whoever's the starting quarterback. Like this is the first week they're going to be under that offense, and it's not the best defense to go up against.
Yeah.
Moving on, we got the Titans taking on the 49ers. Ty, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, the 49ers, they're just playing good football right now. Get the ball to Christian McCaffrey, and that's how you win football games, right?
Mhm.
Throwing the ball or run the ball. The guy he's on an absolute tear. And they're going up against a team that is just pretty pathetic right now, right? Tennessee, outside of Cam Ward, they have nothing, right? I mean, shout out to him though, throwing Grant Delpit off him and throwing that was the greatest incomplete pass I've ever seen. He threw a dude off him, stiff armed in the
Stiff
ground,
armed, yeah.
threw it out of bounds while he's still at his feet. That's probably the highlight of their season, and Tony Pollard's 75-yard run after he had done nothing for like 8 weeks. So give me 49ers. It's pretty easy. They're just a better team in every facet of this game.
Yeah, give me the 49ers here as well. I just don't see a way. If the Titans somehow win this one too, it would just hurt their draft stock a little bit more. I just don't see it happening. Give me the 49ers as well. Moving on, we got Sunday Night Football. We got the Vikings taking on the Cowboys. Obviously, JJ McCarthy, or Nine, as some people would like to call him, had a solid performance this past week, but I'm not really moved by it being against the Commanders defense. I'm just not. Uh, I'm sorry. I just don't really. That game meant nothing to me. I'm not. I know some people are like, oh, maybe JJ McCarthy has hope after all. And I'm like, I don't really see it as that. I want to see him maybe continue it against this Cowboys defense that is, I would say, a little bit better than the Commanders defense, just because I think they're younger and faster and can do a little bit more. On the other side of the ball, though, the Cowboys offense against this Vikings defense, that's the good matchup. I want to see what the Cowboys offense could do, possibly without George or without CD Lamb, if he can't get out of that concussion protocol. It would be pretty nuts for him to get out of it, but it was at least a Thursday night game, so maybe there's a chance for him to be out by Sunday. But the Cowboys offense, I want to see them and how they succeed against this tough Vikings defense. Given that, I think the Cowboys will be able to win either way. I just don't see JJ McCarthy carrying this offense past the Cowboys defense enough points to win this one. I just think maybe it'll be like a 28-20 type of game, but I'm going to take the Cowboys here in this one. Ty, who do you got?
Yeah, I actually think CD might get out of the concussion protocol. I think
Mhm.
typically it takes about 7 days, and he gets the extra 3 days of rest.
And he was
Um,
running around at practice today too.
yeah, so I think there's a pretty good chance, and if he's in the way that he's playing to finish that football game last week, obviously he's playing at a super high level, and that just elevates this offense to another level. I think that the Cowboys defense, like you said, will do enough to stop JJ McCarthy. I don't think, they're far better defense than the Commanders. Quentin Williams alone is better than any player that the
Yep.
Commanders have on that team. And the offense, while I think, Minnesota has a chance to slow them down, I mean, have we really seen anyone slow them down? Like Denver was probably the best matchup against them. They let up 17 points to their starters. Joe Milton threw a touchdown. But yeah, I mean, they're on a different level right now than they were back then too. So give me Dallas here. I don't think Dallas knows that they need to win out to try to make the playoffs too, and I think that starts on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, they're really the only thing that the Vikings are playing for is just like slight hope that maybe JJ McCarthy is the guy, right? That's really all they're playing for. So JJ's gonna be playing hard, but I just don't see them winning this one. Moving on, Ty, Monday Night Football, you got the Dolphins taking on the Steelers. Both teams, still obviously the Steelers are in lead of the division. The Dolphins trying to win out and possibly steal a playoff spot. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Dolphins. I think this game kind of hinges on the health of Devin Achane, right? Because I think he changes. I mean, he is such an electric weapon. He completely changes this offense. And I know Jalen Wright had a lot of success last week, but they're kind of his levels to all of this, right? Like I think that Jalen Wright could have another good game this week because the Steelers are, I think, 21st in rushing yards allowed per game and like
Yep.
125 yards per game. So, it definitely possible that he has a pretty good game. But Devin Achane brings a lot in the passing game as well. The Dolphins have been rolling. I will say it's against some bad teams. So, that is a data point. But um, Pittsburgh is not necessarily a good team either, right? Obviously, they win last week. We talked about the Ravens. Maybe it was a fluke win. Offensively, DK Metcalf finally was unlocked, but he
Yep.
was sick after the game. Had to stay in the hotel because he had some stomach issues. I think he'll be fine this week, but I'll say this about DK Metcalf too. It was cool to see him run down on punt. You don't ever see that guy, a star player, and he's running down as a
It was
gunner on
sick.
punt, like getting bodied by two guys, but just sprinting down and giving his all. Like that's a guy that cares about his team. Say what you want about DK Metcalf, but that's pretty damn sick. But I think the success of this Pittsburgh Steelers team is going to come in the run game with Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. That is the better part of their offense right now. When they go kind of that jumbo package, get Darnell Washington out there to block for you and let the running backs do their thing. Miami's defense has gotten better. Especially their
Definitely.
defensive
Yeah.
front against the run, but they're still like bottom 5 or 6 against the run in the NFL. So I think that's a place that Pittsburgh can, take advantage of, hit some shots to DK Metcalf because they don't have the best secondary either. I'm going to take Pittsburgh in this one because I don't think A-Chain's going to be able to go. That seems what all the reports are right now. Would I love to see the Dolphins go on a run and try to get a playoff spot? Yeah, it'd be fun, but I just don't think that's going to happen against Pittsburgh, and especially with some of the games that they have coming up. So give me the Steelers.
Yeah, give me the Steelers here as well. We saw basically prime Aaron Rodgers last week. It felt like he was making a lot of really good throws. Him and DK had a really good connection going. And maybe if that continues into this week, they could be a dangerous team. And maybe they continue that through the playoffs. Like if you get prime Aaron Rodgers, well, almost prime Aaron Rodgers for the playoffs, it makes them a much better team. And they would really need that. But the Dolphins team really like the fight they're showing after the rough start to the season. And obviously, McDaniel, maybe he gets another year after this extra push to end the season. But I do think the Steelers come out with a win in Pittsburgh too. Like that is a home field advantage, and it'll be cold. The Dolphins don't play well in the cold. Tua doesn't play well in the cold, so give me the Steelers as well in this one. Anyways, moving on to our rapid fire discussions. We aren't going to do this the snake draft, the locks and underdogs, because Sturb isn't here. We'll do that. We'll text and figure out the teams we're going to pick, but we will still do fantasy sleepers and hot takes. So for the fantasy sleepers, Ty, who's your fantasy sleeper of the week going to be?
Yeah, I just talked about him a little bit. It's going to be Jalen Wright. I think that A-Chain's not going to be able to go. I think Jalen Wright's going to get the opportunity to run. Like I said, the Steelers' defensive front has been better, but they're still not great, right? They're still
Yep.
allowing 125 rushing yards a game. Jalen Wright had about 120 last week, and he didn't start the whole game. I think that the Miami offense, I think they're like top 10 in rushing yards, and obviously a lot of that has to do with A-Chain, but when you see a guy that was your third string running back a couple of weeks ago come
Yep.
in, step up, that does say a little bit about your offensive line, which is it's kind of a ragtag offensive line, but I think he's going to get a ton of opportunities. They're going to want to run the football, maybe get some opportunities in the pass game as well. I think he's a guy that you could definitely snag on waivers right now. He's available in a lot of leagues, and you could plug him in your flex, and I think that he has a really good chance to be like a 10 to 15 point guy. And in the first round of the playoffs, that's huge.
Yeah, I definitely think that he could get those numbers. If a Chan's out, like he could get 100 rushing yards very easily against this defense. They've struggled against running backs. We saw the Bills run the same play 20 plus times. We saw the Ravens eat on offense. Somehow Derrick Henry didn't get a touchdown, which screwed one of my parlays, so that pissed me off a little bit. But anyways, moving on, my fantasy sleeper of the week is going to be Pat Bryant. He's second in routes run since week 10 for the Broncos. Him and Bo Nix have a really good connection going. And I think he's going to be a key in this game against this Packers defense. They're going to be focused on Cortland Sutton a good amount. If you can get him going a little bit, maybe Troy Franklin has a few routes targets as well. But I think Pat Bryant will truly step up in this one. And obviously, if CeeDee Lamb is out with that concussion, I just wanted to mention him. Ryan Flournoy is going to be a really good addition for a lot of
Yeah.
fantasy teams out there as well. He had like 13 targets, something like that. And it felt
Yeah,
like
crazy.
all of them. It felt like all of them came in that second half against the Lions. So he's also a possible sleeper as well if CD is
I like the
out.
Pat Bryant one because Pat's kind of been going up and Troy Franklin's kind of been going down. Not in
Yeah.
just like terms of production, but like targets, routes run, all that stuff. It really does seem like Pat is starting to become that wide receiver too in this offense, which is interesting because Bo was going to Troy, that's his college teammate. They have the
Yep.
connection, but I think Sean's kind of just noticed, that Pat's a better receiver. And I think Bo, him and Troy just have had not had a ton of success connecting with each other.
Yeah, I think it took Pat a little bit of time, right, to get acclimated to the NFL game. Maybe the speed of the NFL, things like that. But once he did it, he started to look a lot better. So I like where he's on the path for right now. Anyways, Ty, moving on to hot takes of the week. What is your hot take of the week going to be?
Yeah, with T. Higgins out, I think Jamar Chase goes for 200 yards against the Ravens. Last season, he went for 264 and 193 against them. He also had 5 touchdowns combined between those two games. This past game, where past time they played against them, he had a ton of targets. He had 110 yards. This last game, he had a pretty good game. I think that it's a prime opportunity for Jamar Chase go crazy game, right? Like, the Bengals, they need a miracle to try to make the playoffs. Why not start it now? I think Jamar Chase goes for 200 yards.
I like it. That is
And
a
everyone's gonna
good
call me an
prediction.
idiot on
And I
TikTok,
don't even
but
like the thing is like these are hot takes, right? Like we're not making like actual like predictions. It's just there is a higher chance maybe of that happening than like a normal week. Like
That's
it's
probably
just
the highest chance hot take that I've had too.
yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like that's a good take because it is a weaker Ravens defense, and he's been doing really well when with Joe Burrow back. So my hot take of the week is going to be that the Bills win by double-digit points this week against the Patriots. I think it would shock a lot of people, but I think it's just kind of where we're at in the season, right? Like the Patriots are on a hot streak. Obviously, the Bills are really playing to a high level, and Josh Allen's reaching his capabilities again this year. So at this point in the season, so give me the Bills to win by double-digit points in New England. Anyways, that will do it for our Week 15 picks episode. Make sure to check us out on social media at Jenks Island and wherever you get your podcasts at Jenks Island as well. And we will see you guys next week.